Hey there everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I'm your resident fantasy therapist and welcome back to my channel. Those of you here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kat Bowser. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm also a writer working on my first novel. And on my channel I like to talk about what I consider to be the heart of all writing, and that is the characters. And the heart of the characters is their psychology. So that's the angle I like to take with pretty much everything I talk about on my channel. So those of you who have been here before, probably noticed this is a different backdrop. My husband's still sleeping, so I can't use the bedroom. But I wanted to go ahead and get this out. So there you go. And that is the concept of feedback. I took a little bit to do this video because I was trying to find a way to kind of organize all my thoughts on this, because I do think it's something important to talk about, but there are some times where I think it's kind of hard to put into words my thoughts on it, but we're going to try, so we'll see what happens. So basically, as a writer, you're going to get feedback from usually various places. You'll get it from alpha and beta readers, you'll get it from sensitivity readers, you'll get it from just regular readers, you'll get it from publishers, you'll get it from editors. And I think it's important to realize that there are different types of feedback, and some are more helpful than others. I first got exposed to feedback through fan fiction. That was my first exposure to people giving me feedback on my writing that wasn't a teacher. And while feedback from my teachers was valuable, it was usually honestly focused on the grammar and the prose and things like that, which is important, but it's not the kind of feedback I think as a writer you usually want. You want feedback on your plot, your characters, all that stuff. And that's something I started to get with fan fiction. First thing as a writer that I learned, and I remain grateful to fan fiction for this: not everybody's going to like your work. Not everybody is going to be nice about it. Some people are mean. Some people they get a rise out of tearing people down for no other reason than they can. So as a writer, you really need to develop a thick skin. And I really think fan fiction helped me to do that. When I get poor feedback now, it still kind of hurts. I mean, let's face it. I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't hurt anymore. But it's easier to kind of sort through and decide if I'm going to use this feedback or not. And that's kind of what I want to talk about here. Hi, Bishop. You want to be on TV? Come here. Say hi. Okay, now go. Go. Sorry, guys. That's my dog. So that's kind of what I want to talk about here, is how to determine what feedback to use and what to trash. So first and foremost, I think the most important thing to realize is this is my way of sorting feedback. Yours may be different, and that's fine. I found it takes a little while to really figure out what works best for you. So these are just my personal tips. If they help you, great. If not, you don't have to use them, but I just want to put them out there. So first and foremost, I think that is important is determining who is the feedback coming from. And by that I mean, is it coming from someone that you respect and you want feedback from, or is it coming from someone who is giving you unsolicited feedback? And I think that is an important distinction, because when we put our books out there to the world to be read, we are essentially asking for feedback, because people are going to read them, they're going to have their opinion on them, and we're going to hear about it. But someone that, for example, let's say that you're talking about your work with, I don't know, coworkers or something like that, and someone opts to give you feedback on your very vague idea without even having read the story. That's not really useful feedback, because for one, they haven't even read the thing. This is a little more relevant, I think, in the fan fiction community, because some people will actually put their stories out there and they will say, I don't want feedback, which is their right. Doesn't mean people have to abide by it though. The other thing is to realize, is it coming from a writer or is it coming from a reader? And I think this is important because writers, I think, are more inclined to catch things like voice and tone and things like that because we're writers, so we do the same thing. And that can be useful to you in helping you to determine if you're being repetitive, if your character voice is shifting back and forth, things like that. And that's useful. Reader feedback, I think, is different in that it's more focused on the flow of the story as a whole. And since we are writing to put our work out for readers, I personally give a little more weight to reader feedback than I do writer feedback. And it's not because I don't think writer feedback is valuable. I definitely think it does. I think it is. But I think for me, I want to hear how a reader is interpreting my work as opposed to maybe another writer that can see the little nuances and stuff. For instance, my husband's not a writer, he's a reader. And so he gives me feedback as I write on the characters, the setting, whether or not the plot makes sense, things like that. And things that, as a writer, you're usually too close to your project to really see those errors, which is why we hire editors and things like that. I think the other thing to take into account is what expertise is the person giving feedback coming from? And by that, I mean, is this a sensitivity reader? Is this a beta reader? Is it alpha reader? Or is it just regular reader? I think a lot of times we become defensive, especially if it's something that we feel like we have done a lot of research, put a lot of time into, and then somebody says, wait, that's not how this is. And I think we really need to take into account if the person's coming from an area of expertise, we at least owe it to them to hear them out. For instance, if I was writing about a setting that took place in, like, let's say, the Midwest of the United States, for example, like, I don't know, let's say, somewhere in Kansas, somewhere in the Midwest, and I had done research and everything on it, but then somebody contacted me and said, hey, I live in Kansas, and this part is inaccurate. I think it's in my benefit to listen to that and at least take it into account. The other thing I think that is important regarding research feedback is to take into account, is it precise feedback or is it very vague? As a general rule, I find that feedback that is very vague is usually not helpful. So if someone leaves feedback for me and says, hey, your main character is very boring, and that's all they tell me, that doesn't help me. But if you were to say, hey, I can't relate with your main character because they have a lot of traits that I don't see a lot in people that are in this age range, that's helpful because that tells me what the issue is and why they're having trouble connecting. Does that mean I have to fix it? No. I can make the choice that I've done the character this way for a reason. But if we're taking into account the type of feedback we're getting, if I get precise feedback that tells me exactly what the issue is, I can fix it. I can go back and look at it again and see where they're coming from. Whereas if someone just sends you something that says, hey, this sucks, that's no help. And that's what I call a flame. And that's something that, that's a term that exists in the fan fiction community, is a flame. And a flame is essentially something that is just designed to tear down your self-esteem. It's not designed to be helpful. It's just designed to essentially attack your work. So, examples of a flame. You suck. This sucks. You should never write again. You're a horrible writer. All that kind of stuff. And it gets much worse than that, but I'm not going to go into that here. That's the kind of stuff, throw it away. Don't pay attention to it because it's not helpful. Feedback is supposed to be helpful. And like I said, those don't tell you anything to let you determine what you need to do next, what you can do to fix it, and so on. So in that case, I dismiss them. I focus on the feedback that has given me a way to correct and see what the issue is. Let's see here. Last thing, when I give feedback, I do what we call a sandwich, which is where you mention something positive, something that needs work, and then another something positive. And I think this is the best way to leave feedback regardless of how you're doing it. This is how I do my book reviews. I do positive, something that didn't work so well, positive, and so on and so forth. And I don't think this is necessarily being pandering. I've heard people accuse me of that, saying, that's kind of pandering to the writer. You're just trying to build up their ego. No, I'm not. Feedback is not just telling people what needs work. It's also telling them what works, what is done well. And I think we can tell people what needs work without being a jerk about it. What is the point of coming to someone super aggressively and saying, here's your problem, here's this, and not telling them that, hey, by the way, I still really enjoyed this. That just seems mean-spirited to me, and I don't like that. And like I said, there is no reason you can't give someone feedback about a potential problem in their writing and be nice about it. And it doesn't take anything to be nice, guys. I mean, come on. I could tell someone, hey, your main character sucks. I wasn't interested in the plot at all. This world building's terrible. I could do that. But that doesn't help anybody. All it does is make somebody who wants to tear someone down feel good, and that's not what we want. I can take that same feedback and say, hey, your main character doesn't have a lot of redeemable qualities. I had a hard time connecting with them. I had a hard time picturing your world. Sometimes the plot was confusing. I wasn't sure what was really going on. But I really enjoy your side character, XYZ. They made me laugh. Things like that. That is more helpful, and it's encouraging. And I think we need to do more of that in this community, honestly. That is just my basic thoughts on feedback. Like I said, these are just my thoughts on it. You're welcome to have your own. These are typically the ones I follow. So I'm glad you guys chimed in to hear me rant and rave about this topic. As always, make sure you leave comments below or suggestions below. I always love to read them and get back to you guys on them. If you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss when I upload. I upload every Friday, every Sunday. And as always, if you guys have requests for any type of topic you'd like me to delve into, let me know. And until next time, hope you guys have a good one.